Does anyone really remember what it was like living back when times were normal, before we were living constantly in unprecedented times? I guess that would have been precedented times. Because it's 2 years ago this month that the world went to shit, and we had no idea back then. We were living the last normal week ever. Life was so good. But then the pandemic hit and the various lockdowns, and just when it looked like there was light at the end of the tunnel, Russia decided to invade Ukraine, and we're all now praying it doesn't spill over into World War III. Now, I grew up in the 1980s, and there are many points of my childhood I would happily revisit. The fucking Cold War isn't one of them. And we've also seen that whenever something unusual happens, there are groups of people who are usually paranoid and narcissistic, or just lacking the basic intelligence to understand what's going on. Well, they go online and just make shit up. And other people then go online and read the made up shit and accept it as fact. These people are called conspiracy theorists or truth seekers, and for the last 2 years they've been working double fucking overtime. Well, now there's a new conspiracy theory, brought to us by the same halfwits who made the fake claim that 5G was a weapon, who falsely said that vaccines contained microchips and were responsible for all that QAnon nonsense. Well, the same people are now saying that the war in Ukraine isn't real, claiming it's being orchestrated to drive up the price of oil to force us to drive electric cars. Yeah. But before we get into this, I've seen so many posts on social media by American friends of mine losing their minds about the cost of gasoline. Now, the conspiracy theory started when it got up to $4 a gallon and then ramped up even more when it hit $5. My friends in the New World, please stop your bitching. Here in the UK, we are currently paying between $9.50 and $10 a gallon. We've been paying over $5 a gallon for over a decade, and most of what we pay is tax. Seriously, you have no idea what a government can do if it decides to fuck over its citizens. So the thinking, and I use that term extremely loosely, behind this new theory from the tinfoil brigade is that governments want us to use electric cars in order to limit our movements. But they can do that already just by putting in roadworks. Saturday before last, it took me 2 hours to do a journey that normally takes 45 minutes because the M6 was shut, there were no diversion signs, and I ended up doing essentially a tour of Birmingham by night in its divine splendour. And the problem with this theory is that if we do all go electric, governments are suddenly going to be skint. In the UK, as well as in many other countries, electric vehicles or EVs and hybrids are heavily subsidised. They're exempt from road fund licence or road tax, they don't pay congestion charges, and there are many places where they can park and sometimes even charge for free. Now, the rest of us driving conventional vehicles, we're fucking paying for that. So if we do all suddenly run out and buy milk floats, the government will have a massive hole in its budget. And I've got nothing against electric cars, I just don't think the technology is there yet. Some of the new electric vehicles are claimed to have a range of 300 miles. Now, that's been done under test conditions, so it won't be anywhere near that. But even if it was, a range of 300 miles is all well and good unless you need to drive 301. Now, I know people who've bought electric cars and they say that on a long journey, you just have to pull into a service station and let the car charge for about an hour. A bloody hour! Anyone who can go to a motorway services for more than 10 minutes who doesn't contemplate taking their own life has got something wrong with them. And a few days ago, I was talking to a mate of mine and his sister has bought a Tesla. The only issue being the nearest garage that can service it is 65 miles away. But the conspiracists are claiming that electric vehicles could be shut down by the government remotely. Now, it's not uncommon to see Teslas at the side of the road with their hazards blinking away, but that's got nothing to do with nefarious forces, it's just that they're fucking unreliable. And I can say that because Elon Musk tried to sue Jeremy Clarkson twice and lost twice after the journalist said Teslas are unreliable. But most electric cars still require a driver. So how are the government going to shut them down? So it's important to remember that we're dealing with the same people who this time last year thought that Bill Gates was creeping around vaccination centres with a wheelbarrow full of microchips. Logical thinking is not their strong point. But they're claiming any electric vehicle could be immediately shut down with the use of an EMP weapon. So it's true that an electromagnetic pulse would immediately knock out an electric vehicle. But it would also be just as effective against a car with an internal combustion engine or anything that has any electrical components. In fact, unless you do your daily commute in a fucking traction engine, or worse than that, on a bicycle, we're all vulnerable. But the truth seekers seem to be confusing reality and the plot of the 1990s James Bond film GoldenEye. And the rise in oil prices is much more complicated than just the truly terrible situation that's going on in Ukraine. But it strikes me just how self-important conspiracy theorists are, thinking that countries would fake a war so that they, the conspiracy theorists, would have to buy an electric car. As if world leaders are conspiring so that in the near future, on Friday night, they can stop Barry from 38 Acacia Avenue going to the fucking chip shop. And why is it that conspiracy theorists always carry themselves as if they're as intelligent as a chess grandmaster, when in reality we know most of them couldn't get their head around snakes and ladders? As ever, thanks for watching. Anyone remember what fuck it usual happens? There are groups of people who are often narcissistic, paranoid, backward, unbearable fucktards. Yeah, that'll do. As conspiracy they're even claiming that the new NASA Artemis rocket is fake. You can see the fucking thing. Cars, I just don't think the technology's there. Like, look at a Toyota Prius. When it isn't running on its batteries, it's just dragging the fucking things round with it. Rather than moaning about the price of gas, which I know is short for gasoline, but it is a liquid. I mean, be thankful you're not being fucking shelled. Out and buy milk floats. But the fucking infrastructure's not there. The charging points aren't there. They'd have to turn on all the coal-powered fire stations again. Because, ladies, if your male partner can only drive an auto and can't drive a car with a manual gearbox, sadly, you've just discovered that you're a lesbian. Proposing, fuck it. Of the reason, fucking hell. The amount of crows that just took off, I might be in a Hitchcock film. Most